Chainsaw Man has recently thrown everyone for a loop with the recent events of the last few chapters that literally came through the pages. But in the mix of this Evangelion reference and other affairs, this definitely happened. Like, this is one of the few times that a manga has left me speechless, scrambling to find the words to explain what happened, caught in between a bombshell and the delusion that something like this works. With Denji, who was basically taken advantage of in the heat of the moment, and Asa, whose feelings overflowing through Yoru did things that she kind of hates herself for. And now with the shock value ending off chapter 167 and the explosive reaction it had going across Twitter, I'll be that guy, and as a person who's basically read everything Fuji has put out, something like this is par for the course. I'm in the middle of reading Fire Punch, and just the stuff that goes on in the first two volumes blows anything away that has ever happened in Chainsaw Man with its explicit content. What I can appreciate is that Fujimoto didn't hold back, like he went balls to the walls. He was intending to invoke a reaction out of his audience, and he succeeded without fail. Something that many don't know is that Fujimoto also understands Twitter culture, and for something to go viral, it has to start there. Art is subjective, and our Mad Lad mangaka likes pushing boundaries, especially in the context of a shonen demographic. And so by showing the graphic intensity behind this situation with Asa and Denji, Fuji ignited the fuel of the inferno that this chapter ended up becoming. He essentially calculated every step, and to a degree, it's ingenious. I have some interesting ideas regarding how this could end up playing out moving forward for Asa and Denji, and I'll leave that for the end of the video, so stick around because the groundwork is there, it just needs to be built upon. But progressing into Chainsaw Man chapter 168, we get the payoff and the aftermath of that actual climax with a title that's just as provocative. Now, I think a lot of us were very curious about two things from this chapter, that being the reactions of Denji and Asa respectively, as this is very confusing for the both of them, and that uncertainty is felt as Yoru stares at her hand in shock over what just transpired, almost like she hasn't still fully comprehended the gravity of the situation. Denji in turn is sitting down slumped over, wrapping his head around everything. There's this awkwardness reverberating through the pages. It's meant to be embarrassing and uncomfortable, and Fuji is getting that message across perfectly. Yoru, shaken up and moderately repulsed by the substance on her hand, cleans them in a nearby puddle, while also informing Denji not to misunderstand the situation. She tells Denji that the only reason she kissed him was because it felt good, which I don't completely buy yet. But Denji is still totally out of it, stuck in a daze, so he asks Yoru point blank, why did she kiss him? This is something important to Denji, but before he can express his feelings, she interrupts him and shuts him down. War once again affirms that the only reason she kissed Denji was because of the pleasure, but reading into the subtext, it's clear that War is projecting. She's acting extremely defensive, and that's part of the reason why I don't think she's telling the full truth. So I'm under the impression that perhaps she's a lot closer to Asa than even she believes herself. Asa's feelings and emotions are hers, and vice versa, and that's why not a page later, she looks at Denji and looks down at his lips, and she goes in for one final kiss to close it off. Now, something I want to catch attention to is the way this situation is framed, where Asa and War are arching above an unguarded Denji. It parallels the situation with Makima all the way back in part 1, where she used her authority and position to manipulate and control Denji to go after the Gun Devil. The difference, however, is that the subtext of their interactions are completely different. With Makima, their dynamic was propelled by lust, and Denji pursuing his venereal desires, but that's where it stopped. With this instance, it's a lot more personal. There's no rhyme or reason behind Yoru's actions, just pure unadulterated emotion that's emulating from Asa to War, and Denji can actively sense this. Which is why Denji questions if she likes him, but War rejects the notion and conveying that it's Asa who's infatuated with him, and her actions were in response to the true feelings that Asa has for Denji. So one could argue that their exchange is the result of Asa's emotional buildup, understated throughout part 2 until ultimately reaching this peak. She liked Denji from the beginning, and Denji likes anyone who likes him. There's a lot going on here, and it's very controversial, but possibly the strangest thing present is that even though War instigated this mess, it's also in a very weird way the most intimate Denji has ever been with anyone in Chainsaw Man. Sure, he's had his experiences like with Ameno 445, Reize where Denji had his first real date, or with Makima when she used her body to manipulate him. He's had Nayuta by his side as his little sister that he cherishes and loves, and he's also had moments with Power, who was the truest best friend that Denji ever had next to Aki. But Asa is Denji's first legitimate romantic partner who likes Denji for Denji and not because he's Chainsaw Man, and I believe this is the true source of his inner conflict. Denji's motivation in part 1 was Makima. She filled that maternal role he missed from his childhood. She was the dream he was chasing after, and everything he did was for the purpose of being with her. But inevitably, it was never him that Makima was looking towards, it was Chainsaw Man, which is even clarified with her death. Denji was so invisible in her eyes, he made a gamble on his insignificance, and the payoff was his victory and Makima's defeat. So when we get into part 2, Denji continues to battle this contradiction in exchange of the leftover trauma that Makima's vice grip continues to contain him in. Denji wants to be Chainsaw Man. He wants to be a hero that garners attention and that is celebrated by the masses. But most importantly, he seeks after female attention. And time again, it's not him that women love and cherish, it's what he symbolizes behind the mask of the chainsaw hero. It's a paradox because he wants to be Chainsaw Man so he can get the one thing that's constantly on his mind. But the more he embellishes in this notion, the more unloved he is, the lonelier he becomes, and the more pain he experiences. It's because Denji is Chainsaw Man that he loses everything. His dogs, his apartment, and even Nayuta. The Chainsaw Man that was supposed to solve all his problems just continues to create even more. So when he hears from Yoru that her other half Asa has genuine feelings for Denji, not Chainsaw Man, but Denji, he doesn't know how to react because the intention didn't match the outcome. He got the one thing he desired and he couldn't enjoy any of it. It just made him feel small, invaded, and insignificant. All he can do is contemplate in his confusion while grappling with the pain by someone he shared intimate experiences with. And now Asa is also a victim here because from her point of view, she is filled with rage and embarrassment that's all targeted at Yoru because she did a lot of things with her body that she didn't consent to and that she knows is wrong. Asa is also a lot more reserved. She may have the same desires that Yoru followed through with, but it's one thing to think about and an entirely different situation to completely act on. Yoru is confused because she's a devil and she doesn't get human relationships, so she believed that Asa would be happy with these turn of events and is actually surprised at her violent reaction. But Asa is disgusted with herself, angry at Yoru for degrading Denji and then some, but she is also worried that he will see her unfavorably, and everything between them is now all ruined. And so we're left with this uncertainty, hesitation, and many mixed emotions from both parties while they head out to the sushi restaurant to pig out before War is allegedly supposed to battle with Chainsaw Man. But what does this all mean moving forward? Where do we go from here? What will happen between the two and will they manage to resolve the awkwardness between them? Well, to understand why the context of the situation matters so much, we have to go back to the aquarium date where the ship between Asa and Denji initially set sail. While trapped in the aquarium, Denji and Asa found common ground and comfort from each other. They enjoyed each other's company, they had fun together, and they even ate a starfish. But something Asa did was give Denji a positive reminder of his past, when he usually remembers or represses the negatives, witnessing Power Spirit through Asa, which is part of the reason what brought them so close together in the first place. I think Fujimoto intended for the setup to reflect the current circumstances, but an extremely distorted version that completely subverted our expectations, where the place we hoped for our protagonist to be is now all muddled with anguish. Regardless of everything that's happened between them, Asa is still special to Denji, and they each hold a certain place in each other's hearts, even if it's not articulated. So while there is this rift between them, I am hoping there is the potential to close that gap, and possibly even bloom into something that they were both searching for this entire time. Denji and Asa are extremely similar. Fujimoto even makes it a point to draw direct parallels between two halves of a missing whole that could connect together to become one piece. I think with the right love behind him, Denji can make the steps to live a normal life, and hopefully it's with Asa by his side, who's also lived a tragic and lonely life. If War actually fights Chainsaw Man, I desperately hope the end result could be sharing an honest and intimate moment, and I mean this in the realest sense because it does seem like a place that they could end up if Fuji doesn't break us before that happens. And perhaps it's in an environment that directly opposes everything that happened here. It would be the inverse of this situation, from Denji and Asa both feeling uncomfortable and violated to is safe and warm. Cause something we gotta remember is that Asa is as much of a victim as Denji is, and seeing them both struggle and suffer makes me wish that they can each find happiness. Denji especially has been put through the ringer of suffering, but maybe that's just the intention so we can finally find peace at a cathartic ending. Togata from Fire Punch wanted the same thing for Agni, intending to put him through hell until it all fell together. Maybe that's the same story of Chainsaw Man, a series of L's that twist and turn you until there's finally peace. But let me know your thoughts and comment below what you guys think will happen next. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video.